I got in touch with my congressman and tried to get him not to discharge me, but it didn't do any good. And I could have made him a good hand, I guess, in a few months after that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, this is the first time I've ever been interviewed for anything like this, and I don't know, you may have to.
Well, I'm just going to just ask you a series of questions.
Yeah, my vocabulary is a little bit. I've been out of circulation for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Today is the 15th, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And Austin Flat.
Yep, you won't hear this. There's a discharge there.
Okay.
One of them.
This is February 15th,
Mm-hmm.
1988. This is Joe Todd, and an interview with Mr. Austin Dewey Flat in
Yeah.
Austin, Texas. So, where were you born?
I was born at Collinsville. It's up north of Fort Worth,
Mm-hmm.
about 70 miles.
And when's your birthday?
April 25th. Born 1901.
April 25th, 1901.
Before you leave, I want to show you the picture of another ship,
Okay.
battleship.
And who was your father?
William H. Flatt, W.H. Flatt.
And your mother?
Annie Mae Welch.
Annie Mae Welch. And what kind of work your father do?
Well, he was a farmer, part-time farmer, and part of the time he worked for a milling company in Sherman and in Whitesboro. You know where they are.
Yeah. And where'd you go through high school?
Collinsville.
Collinsville.
Mm-hmm.
And you graduated in what year?
I didn't graduate.
You did graduate.
Ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Do you remember Armistice Day?
Sure.
Where were you in that?
I was working for E.I. DuPont in Jackson, Tennessee.
Tell me about that day.
Huh?
Tell me about Armistice Day in Jackson.
Well, there were 40,000 people working out there, and they just as quick as they could pay us off and get us out of there, we went home. Or I didn't go home. I went on to Tennessee. I mean to Alabama, and working coal mines down there.
What were you doing with DuPont there in Jackson?
Well, I was wheeling a bale of cotton in a wheelbarrow. Yeah, I was just 17, and I did that until, well, they had sulfur in piles as big as this condo here, you know, and all, and you didn't see the sun. Very seldom you'd see the sun all day. And I was manning the wheelbarrow, rolling those bales of cotton, compressed cotton. And whenever the armistice was signed, of course, that was it. I went out there to stay as long, you know what I mean. I was just a little too young to get in the Army.
Were you getting close to the draft?
Beg pardon?
Well, were you getting close to the draft in 18?
No, I don't know. I don't remember 19 and I don't remember what the draft age was in. 18, I believe it got on to 18. I liked about a year, I think. I was 17 when I was out there.
So you went to Alabama to work in the coal mines.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in the coal mines?
I run a motor, electric motor, pulling cars, pull them up in the mine, drift mine, and I take them up so far, and then they'd hook a mule on them and take the rest of the way. And they'd just start in and go through one of those mountains out there, tunnels, and then branch off.
Now, were the mules inside the mine or outside the mine?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, they'd go up in the mine. And then they would turn those cars loose way back up there, and they'd coast down. And they had a man standing outside the entrance When those cars come out there, they'd throw a spike in the wheel. That's the way they had to stop it, keep them going.
If they miss a spike, what happens?
They might have a little wreck. It's just 1 ton on each car, and they some of them get pretty good with those spikes.
And what part of Alabama is this located?
Gorgas, Alabama. It's about 10 miles from American Junction, and what they were building a railroad out there, and it rained all the time. I didn't stay out there long, and then it finally snowed, and you couldn't get in and out of the mine, and I went home. You know, and I went and joined the Navy.
Okay, why'd you join the Navy over the Army or the Marines?
I just always liked the, thought I'd like the Navy, and that was one thing. And another thing, I was named after Admiral Dewey, and I got to serve on his flagship before I got out of the Navy. The USS Olympia, it's on the back of that, of that discharge.
And you enlisted what day?
It's on the discharge. I don't remember. First,
Okay,
13th day of.
Here's your discharge.
Now wait a minute. Now this is my second enlistment. This is not my first enlistment. You want the first enlistment, I guess, don't you? It's for those papers.
Did we cover it up?
No, I guess it's over here. I didn't know we were going to go back that far, so. Oh. Let's see. My first enlistment was April 13th. I thought it was 13th, 1922.
1922. Where'd you take boot camp?
Boot camp? Great Lakes.
Great Lakes. Tell me about boot camp.
Boot camp?
Yeah.
Well, when I was a kid, I always thought I'd want to be a pharmacist, so I went to Great Lakes, and I was going to pharmacy school. They're at Great Lakes. And they gave me a choice of some extra, well, when I wasn't going to school, something to do, I guess, to pay my keep. But anyway, I cooked for about 4 officers in their quarters, and then went to pharmacy school, and I did that for about 2 or 3 months, and I got the idea that I wanted to get out and get some salt water, so I left the pharmacy school, and they sent me to Philadelphia, and I went on a German ship that had captured during World War I.
What was the name of it?
Ostfriesland.
I'm sorry?
Ostfriesland. I've got a picture of it in there. And
what'd you do in that ship? What were your duties?
well, I went on there, and in about 2 weeks I took the mumps, and they sent me to the hospital over in Brooklyn, and I stayed there 30 days. And while I was in the hospital, the Navy Department decided that they was going to discard that ship. They had brought it over here with the intention of going around the coast, just showing it to all of the American people. They'd go into all big city and have tourist people just to show off their prize to them. And they found out it's going to be too expensive. It didn't have but one motor that would run, and it was a big ship. So they discarded that, and they decided that they would just take it out and scrap it. And what they did, you ever hear of Billy Mitchell?
Yeah.
Well, Billy Mitchell wanted to take it out and sink it from the air. And they thought he was crazy, and they court-martialed him, I think. And anyway, they did that. And it's on the bottom of the Atlantic over here, east of Virginia. They did sink it in 1920, I think.
With
no,
airplanes?
20. Beg pardon?
With airplanes?
Yeah. He sank it from the air. And that got him back in good standing. And
How large is that ship?
The Ostrich prison?
Yeah.
Well, I've got the whole, it's right here on the wall and it's got all that on it. It was, let's see, come here and I can read it to you. I think right. Oh. I've got the log on that thing from the time it left. It's got the full over here.
You say you had the log on the... Okay, so when did you go aboard the Oklahoma?
Okay. I think that answered it. Puget Sound. Got on the Oklahoma 9th of no, September the 7th, 1922.
And where'd you go aboard the Oklahoma?
San Pedro Harbor.
San Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think when you first saw the Oklahoma?
Well, I thought it was a good-looking ship. It was a good ship. It was only about 6, 7 years old, and I think most of the fleet was in the harbor when I went in there, and the Texas was sitting over there. They were just sit ship, and I went on there and was very impressed when I got on there. There was, I don't know, several hundred of us went around to the west coast on the Shawmut from east coast, and they put about 30 or 40 of us on the Oklahoma, scattered the others out on the fleet, and lined us up on deck, and I think Lieutenant Commander Holsinger was officer of the deck, and Ensign Walker, who had the charge of the catapult and the airplane, he was down there at that time, and they lined us up and they select the men to go to each division where they wanted his own tune, you know what I mean. He'd pick out the ones he wanted and put them in his. Well, in fact, he wanted me for the fire control division.
What's fire control?
We had charge of all the big guns and all of the anti-aircraft, except the Marines had charge of the 5-inch battery. They were on the main deck and on the superstructure, and had charge of the race boat and the airplane, the catapult, and my battle station was in the main top on a
What do you say main top?
aftermast of crow's nest, and I was a direct scope operator. In other words, I fired the guns. Could either fire one turret or all the turrets at one time, and had I'd fire them on the down roll, and then we had that airplane. After we got that, he could go out there about where that target in that vicinity and tell us we were shooting to the right, too high, too low, or, you know. And
How do you get up to the crow's nest?
on a ladder.
Was that inside that cage mast?
Inside, yeah. And at that time,
Right here, there's a...
yeah, that's the one right there. No, I fired every gun on that.
Okay, now that's where the big guns are in the front, isn't it?
Yeah.
How big were those guns?
14 inch.
14 inch.
Mm-hmm.
So, fire control, that's, you say, in charge of the big guns.
Well, we had the big guns. We had the division had the guns and the plotting room. We put a new compass on there. It was a gyro compass, which is a true compass. I think that the other, is 5 degrees off ordinary compass, and that helped us a whole lot in our firing. Now I don't know about we would go out about some islands out there, 200-300 miles, and go out there, and sometimes they'd stay out in that vicinity about a week. Half the fleet would go out the night before, and the rest of the fleet would go out early the next morning and locate them, and they were pulling targets, and we would fire. Some days we'd fire out there you couldn't see the ship, smoke, and we'd shake out a lot of window lights there in San Pedro sometimes.
How do you get the projectiles up to the big guns?
Elevator. It will hold one shell. There's 3 90-pound bags of powder and a 14-inch to shoot a 14-inch shell. It'd come up on the elevator, and when that elevator would get to the top, that shell would spin, and the man would manhandle it, stop it from spinning it, and lay it on a rack and tip it over into the barrel.
And how is it pushed in the barrel?
With a large plunger.
Okay.
There's a manhandle it. You can push it in there off a steel. There's a steel trough that is in, and it fit right in the reach of the gun. And he would push it in there with that, and then they would put 3 bags of powder behind it. And those powder bags, they had slow burning powder on one end and high powered powder on the other. Well, the end of the bags, one of them was one color and one the other, and so we could tell them. They tell them apart, and then they'd put those bags in, close the breech, and then they would.
Now, what fired the powder? What set the powder off? How
Well,
did you fire the gun?
What set the powder off?
Yeah.
Electric.
Okay, it's fired by electricity.
Yeah, electric is the gun pointer. Sit on the right hand side. That gun, and he pointed, and then of course he they had 2 of them. One of them for vertical, and the other horizontal. One of them for horizontal, and it fired, and after the shell was fired, they had an air compressor that blew all that powders in silk bags. And after they fired the gun, it was compressed air that blew that, if there's any rags or anything left in there, that blew that out. And then it was ready to reload. But
which end of the powder went in first? The slow bolt burning end or high?
the high explosive was in front, and the slow was on the back end.
What was the reason for the 2 different powders?
Well, I don't know. That's the reason I've always wondered on this the powder that they put in there. We made powder at DuPont's. It was in chunks about this big, big. All right, that's what they put in the back end of those, and you could stick a match to that and it'd burn. But in the front end of the bag that you put in first, it had very high explosive powder, and that's one of the things that I'd wondered about on this.
Now, did each bag have the 2 different powders in it?
Yes, all 3 bags.
Yeah.
Weighed 90 pounds, 270 pound in there, and that shell weighed about I think a 14-inch shell weighed about 900 pounds, something like that. I forgot. That's been a long time ago, and I haven't talked, I haven't talked that for 60 some odd years on just what tell the
Yeah.
family, you know what I mean? But,
What exactly were your duties in fire control? What did you do in the ship?
what did I do on the ship?
Yeah, that's fire control.
Well, if we were going to, and that's about the only time it was in use, you know what I mean? That your fire control would be in, actually, I would be in this main top up there firing those 14-inch guns.
And what did you do in the main top in the crow's nest? What did you?
What did I do?
Were you more or less an observer to tell them where they were firing?
No, I pulled the trigger on the, you know, on the director scope.
Oh, so you
You
actually.
sit up, yeah, you sit up there in that crow's nest on a stool like this, and you've got that scope, and your ship are rolling like this. Your gun sights will go below the target, and then when your ship rolls over this way, your sights will go above the target. All right. Whenever you're going to fire, when your gun barrel comes down on the level and gets on your target, then you pull the trigger.
So you actually pulled the trigger for the big guns.
Oh yeah, yeah, all of them. Well, that was my main duty.
Where were your quarters in the Oklahoma?
4th Division quarters were on the main deck. I've got a picture here somewhere, little picture, postcard pictures.
Now here's this. That's the remodeling though.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, see, my
Okay, can we turn it
quarters.
around this way and get it on the? Can you show me that way which?
Let's see. Have you got the other picture? The one where-
This one?
Oh yeah. I couldn't show it on that. Well, this is your bow, and this here.
Let's get it just like that so we get it on the tape.
Oh, I see. This about here. Here's it. At the time I was on where here is gangway here, and the gangway was up here, and my quarters was right in there somewhere. Of course, that doesn't look anything like it did.
On the main deck or?
On the main deck.
On the
Yeah,
main
I
deck.
was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe your quarters?
Well, I believe I can show you part of it.
Okay.
You want me to?
Sure.
No, I had a whole lot of pictures, and I lost them. That's a long time to keep a picture. Don't need that. That's when I went in the Navy. I fired that salvo on that.
That's, you say number 3 turret. What's,
Number 3 turret. Yeah.
is that the?
That would be the one over on this side, I think.
Okay, that's number 3 turret. What? On over here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that number 3 there?
Is that the top one or the bottom? There's a bottom, isn't
Yeah.
it? There's
Yeah.
a bottom one in it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, yeah, it'd be this turret right here.
Okay, the top one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's number 3. So, and you fired that salvo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then I bought the pictures. There we're loading ammunition.
That's the 14-inch shells.
Mm-hmm. Now, my living quarters, I think, was in this compartment here, back out, you know. That's the Marines on a 5-inch anti-aircraft gun. There were some of those up above on the superstructure up here.
Is this what they call the casemate deck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a little rough water on the Oklahoma.
Like laundry's hanging out.
Yeah, they washed the clothes. I think I was in Birmingham when that is made. I mean in Seattle when that is made.
Okay, that's you on the Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. We went to Seattle or Bremerton for all of the overhaul work that was did on the Oklahoma was did at Bremerton. Now this
Well, what's this case on? Like an old.
Oh, well, that's our landing crew. We had a landing party at Santa Barbara, California one time, and that's what we took our ammunition and
Huh.
all our gun on there. We had a 1-pounder or something. Those
Is
are,
this you again?
no, that's not.
No, that's not you.
No, that's when I was at Great Lakes here.
Mm-hmm. Bremerton, Washington. Yeah. So, describe your quarters. What they look like on the ship.
Yeah, let's see what we do. Well, you go in the door here and let's see here. Here's your guns. We had one gun over here, and our bakery was right here in one corner of our quarters, and in the well, that's the bakery, and then the rest of it just open with the hammocks between the stanchions, and then they took all the hammocks out and put the bunks in. Why, we had just it's 3 bunks high, and I don't know how many. It was about 50 in one, 40 or 50 in one unit. Those hammocks in daytime, we'd just fold them up, you know.
Now, you say you had the first bunks in the Oklahoma?
First bunks, it was in the Navy. We should put it on Oklahoma. Oh, there may have been some on some of the smaller ships, but about the battleships, we were the first.
Was the Oklahoma the biggest battleship in the Navy at that time?
No, I think the Mississippi was a little bit larger, and I think in the California was a little bit larger. Mine was a class, let's see, that is class 37, excuse me. 37. BB 37.
Yeah, BB 37.
Yeah, and some of the others, I've got a magazine with all those ship pictures. Pictures in there.
Now, what does 37 class mean? What does that mean?
Well, that's a division.
The division.
Uh-huh.
And where did you take the meals in the ship?
We had them in our quarters.
In your quarters.
Yeah. We had them in the quarters.
Did you know many of the officers on the Oklahoma?
I did when I was on there, but that's been a long time ago. Now, I've forgotten the captain name on the Oklahoma. It's on my discharge, yes. But I knew, let's see. I remember the ones in my division. That's all that I remember. They're about the only ones I ever came in contact with.
Were they pretty good, the officers in the Oklahoma?
Oh yeah, they were real good. Mine were. They were. This Holsinger, Holshinger, I forgot his name, and then Ensign Walker, and then Boatswain first class was name was Dykes, and short time after I went on there, he was transferred and had a first class boatswain mate named Coyle, John Coyle. And the others I don't remember too much about. You know, I've only talked to one person about any of the details on that ship since in the 60 some odd years that I've been out, and that was Eddie Rickenbacker.
Oh, do you know him?
I didn't know him, But he stayed with me about 2 or 3 days in Snyder, Texas, in 1950. He came down there to speak at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. And my employer, C.T. McLaughlin, was a promoter, you know, Snyder, Bush and Snyder, and he got him down there to speak. He was very popular, and you know, it hadn't been long before that until he was lost out in the Pacific on a raft. You know?
That's right. Were you on the voyage to Australia and New Zealand?
That happened just after I got out of the Navy.
It did.
That was in 25, I think. Yeah.
What was the purpose of that voyage? Do you know?
Purpose?
Yeah.
Just to show off the Japan, and then we had. See, that fleet at that time wasn't up to what it should be. They didn't have enough men to man the ships, and that's the reason I was doing 2 or 3 different. I had the race boat. I had charge of the race boats.
What's a race boat?
Well, you know, we had a racing crew on there, and they had the catapult, and my drills with in the fire control division that we had. We had those during the day, you know. I mean, they had the gyro compass was in the plotting room. That's down 7 decks, down there, and there's somebody down there all the time working on that. Had to work on that planet, and it's like we worked on that like they work on these computers today. On it, it's just been, you know. That's where those computers started, way down. They come on up now to where.
How come that compass was so far below the main deck?
I don't know. It's maybe to be more protected there than anywhere else. That's the only reason I could see.
Can you just relate some incidents that happened on the Oklahoma that you can recall?
What kind of incidents?
Just
anything?
Yeah.
Well, I know one incident that happened while I was on the Oklahoma that was a real disaster, and that was the Mississippi blew up. One turret blew up, and we were having battle practice, and they were ahead of us about 500 yards, and they were about 500 yards ahead of us, and the wind was blowing 50 miles an hour, and we were out there, and there was about 12 battleships in our firing line, and we went out up in the morning, and the other half of the fleet had gone out the night before, and we were out hunting them. They were towing targets. We were firing at their targets. And the Mississippi, we noticed, I was in the main top where I could see, and we noticed that she fell out of line and headed back in towards San Pedro, just full speed. And we didn't know what was the matter. I didn't, you know, what was the matter with it. And that's when they had a gun turret that had blown up, and it killed 47 men. And we went on and finished our exercise, target practice, and went on back in that afternoon while the Mississippi was anchored in San Pedro Harbor, and it had a tug on each side, holding her with one gun elevated and pointed out. And about 10 minutes after we got in the harbor, why, that gun went off. And what made it go off, they were clearing the wreckage out, clearing the bodies out of the turret There's 47 of them burned. And somebody that burned in that turret closed the hatch before he died that went down to the ammunition room. Otherwise, the whole ship would have gone up. Of course, they didn't know who it was. And they went to remove the man from the man that fired the gun, or the man that was in the turret where they had one gun went off. He died instantly. And when he died, he had his hand on the trigger. And when they removed his hand, when they removed him, removed his finger, fired that gun. The trigger. Just knocked all the window lights out of the houses in San Pedro. And I don't know whether it went on the other side of Catalina Island or what, but anyway, one 14-inch shell fired there in the harbor. That was one of the most exciting and one of the most sad things. I went to the funeral. I got a picture of the funeral in the magazine.
When did that happen? What year?
It happened in 1920. I can tell you exactly in about. You'd like to know exactly when it happened? What date?
Oh, what year? What,
24.
24.
Yeah, 24.
Mm-hmm. Any reason? Why did the turret blow up? Do they know why?
Yes, they didn't learn for a good while, but the wind was blowing 50 miles an hour, and we were going into the wind. And when they fired that turret, I went to reload. They turned the blower on to blow out the trash, you know, those fragments that were left of that powder bag. They turned the air on to blow that out. All right, that wind that they were going into was 50 miles an hour, and they had the breech open on the back end of this gun. And whenever they opened it, instead of that blower blowing that out while the wind was coming in from the other way, and it blew that fire back into the powder. When they put it in that gun, it had the wrong end, it had the right end in front, but then that powder ignited that high-powered powder in the front end of those bags. And in other words, the gun fired without the breech being closed back in the back. I got that in a letter the other day. In the last letter I got from the Oklahoma Association, that's in there. Yeah. Hello. Is this the doctor's office? Okay, this is Guy Barks's son-in-law. Can you give me the message, please?
Any other story that you can relate about the Oklahoma that you can recall?
No, only I know that it was, they had a bunch of the... It's getting pretty close, isn't it? Best, they had a bunch of the best crew, you know what I mean, they were all hard workers, and we knew that we were getting a lot of equipment that wasn't any of the other ships getting. We got the bunk beds, and we got the new gyro, we got the airplane, and we got something else. I forgot what it was now.
Thank you very much.
But anyway,
Bye-bye.
Anyway,
Real good.
I was in love with that thing. I went on there to stay. I would have stayed.
Why were the airplanes put on?
Why were they put on?
You need to.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
Why did we get the airplane? All right. When we were having long-range battle practice, they were about that would be all the way from 18 or 17 to 20 miles long range. All right, it was hard for the gunners to spot just exactly where those shells were hitting, whether we were shooting off to the right, to the left, or too low, too high. So fella go up in that little plane, circle around up there. It was
Yes, you said
two
15.9, and that's
two-
what they wanted.
two passenger,
The medication, just exactly like
4.5
the
cockpits,
The next station.
and I think it had 65 horsepower. Just a little fella. And I fired it the first time. But anyway, go back to that's the reason we got the airplane. So
Now, how was that airplane? How did it take off the Oklahoma?
off the catapult.
Catapult.
Yeah.
How'd that operate?
All right, you had the catapult here. It's I don't know how wide it was, but it's 6 foot long. It had a track on it, like a miniature railroad track. And that cart sit on that track, sit that airplane back here, and it was fastened down with I think there was 4 triggers, or latches or catches on there that held it in place. And on this side of the catapult there was a valve over there. On this side over here there was one over here. And when he got ready to go, he gave us a signal why it just like shooting a gun, why we would release both of those valves, and it was steam operated. And off he'd go, and with one man in there, it didn't look like it dropped 6 inches when he went off. It's 60 feet long, the catapult, and when he got to the end of it, it was about 60 miles an hour. Had to take him off all right, and he would gun it whenever he get ready to go off. And he had a friend that wanted to go off with him, so they come back. We made a full speed ahead on the battleship. The water was rough. We made a full turn. That smoothed that water out just like this floor. Well, he could land there, and then he taxied up, and we lifted him up and set it back there. And then when 2 got in it, the second man got in there. When they were fired up, he went off and he went down, made a pretty good dip. It was a little too much load, and they didn't recommend that 2 go off unless they were awfully small. But 1's all they needed in it, because he'd go out there and then he'd radio back and tell us what they should do with their they should raise their sights or lower them, or But that's what we got the plane for, just a spot for the on maneuvers when we were having gunnery practice.
Now, in your quarters, did each man have a locker?
Yeah, I had a locker. And I think
How large are those lockers?
about half the size about the size of that, and about half as tall. Go ahead. Don.
2 by 3 feet or something?
Yeah. It'd be enough to put a sea bag and a little extra stuff in there.
Now, why were you discharged from the Navy? What happened?
Why?
Yeah.
I had got this injury there in that harbor at San Pedro.
What happened?
We were going ashore on Liberty to attend to fights in Los Angeles. One of our men was fighting over there that night, and the water was rough, and it was raining, and the wind was blowing 40, 50 miles an hour. I don't know, they shouldn't have been. But anyway, about halfway between our ship and the dock in San Pedro, submarine, or a sub chaser. Sub chaser was going from San Pedro to Long Beach, and he hit us about middle of the boat. It didn't sink, but we limped in to the dock. But the top on those water taxis was made out of 2x4s and canvas. And I was sitting on a bench, leaning back, and one of those 2x4s got me right here, and just caved me in there a little. And I stayed at the hospital a few days, and I'd go back to duty and get down again. Had a little too much time, and they didn't think that I would recover enough to be able to continue in the work that I was doing, I guess. I don't know what else.
So they discharged you?
Mm-hmm. I tried to, well, and I got in touch with my congressman, Sam Rayburn, and thought maybe he might get him to give me a little more time in the Navy. I didn't want out. I was enjoying it.
Did you enjoy the Oklahoma?
Oh yeah, you bet. I would have stayed on there as long as they'd have let me. I guess.
Whenever you heard about Pearl Harbor, the Oklahoma had sunk, what was your reaction?
I went to San Antonio, tried to get back in the Navy. They said they'd call me if they got in a tight. So I guess they got along without me all right.
If I ask a question, the Oklahoma is, how would you answer that?
The Oklahoma is what?
The Oklahoma. When you hear anyone mention the USS Oklahoma, what do you think of?
Well, I still think I hate to see it come to the end that it did. All those men on there, I didn't know any of them. But I guess I'm the oldest. Last year at the meeting in San Jose, there was one man there that was older than I am. He was 87. And I'm 86. I'll be 87 in April. And a lot of the ones that escaped and got out of there, they're getting old now, you know that. And I think it's still about 400.
Yeah, that's why we're doing these interviews.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to save the history of the Oklahoma.
Hmm?
We're trying to save the history of the Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, they could hold their part in anything that they got into in the way of athletics. Well, see, what they were doing at that time, the Navy Department it had run down, and they were trying to build up their fighting force on the West Coast. And the Japanese, they were messing around with China, and they didn't know but what they might have to go to war pretty quick. And they was trying to build up the fleet on the West Coast.
A lot of these people I talk to say that they consider the Oklahoma their home. You think that?
Yeah, I would. I thought it was my home when I was on it. Sure did.
Any other stories you can relate about the Oklahoma? What's your fondest memory of the Oklahoma?
I tell you the most enjoyment I got out of it was on the weekends when I didn't go ashore. I didn't go ashore too much on the weekend, but I had more enjoyment out of showing visitors around the ship on the weekend. You got to meet lots of people, and they were interested in that's. I think we went down superstructure, superstructure, main deck, and the next deck down. That's as far as you know what I mean. We ever took visitors, and we have so many come on there, and I enjoyed. You know, mostly they were families, and I enjoyed going with them. And a lot of times when you show them around, they'd invite you to their home, and you can go out and maybe spend a weekend with them sometimes, and get a little family life that way.
How many decks in the Oklahoma? From the top deck down to the bilge?
I couldn't answer that. Exactly. I think the plotting room, that was getting about down about as low. I think it's 7 decks, I believe, down. I'm not sure. And then they superstructure. And I might say my living quarters are on the main deck.
Why do they go to the tripod conning towers? You
I don't know. I don't know. Those other towers were I don't know, they were more obstruction in those than that is, you know what I mean, that is if
Yeah.
a shell would go through there between those towers and it wouldn't go through those other superstructures. That'd be the only advantage that I can see.
You know, in Oklahoma City, we also have the official model of the Oklahoma the Navy made.
Do you?
And it was built in, I think, in 1911 or 1912 when they laid the keel of the Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's about a 20-foot model. And it has the old cage mask on it and everything.
Well, they've got a lot more, I don't know, maybe get up and go up there than we've got in Texas. You know where the Texas is?
Yeah, it's down in...
Down there, they trying to find that beer cans to fix it.
But you know, they sold the Oklahoma for scrap.
Yeah,
But she fooled them,
yeah.
which I'm glad she did.
Which what?
I'm glad she did. I didn't want to see her scrapped.
No, I'd rather see it. Like someone asked me, I've got. That's the first battleship in there that I was ever on. First one I ever went aboard. Now it's on the bottom of the Atlantic, and the Oklahoma was the last battleship I was on. It's on the bottom of the Pacific. And no, I wouldn't even make razor blades out of them. They're not, you know.
Yeah. And you say you're on the Olympia,
I was on the Olympia, yeah.
and that was Admiral Dewey's flagship.
Yeah, it was his flagship.
What happened to it, the Olympia?
It's in Philadelphia in the Navy Yard on display. Put it in put it on a pedestal and put it up there in the Navy Yard where you can go aboard it. It was, while I was on that, we were observers. Well, that is, we carried a bunch of high-ranking naval officers down to the Caribbean where we had battle practice down there as observers to oversee the what the boys was doing down there, you know, how well they could shoot, how much firepower they had, and we went down there and carried those officers down there, and when that was over, I came back to Philadelphia, I believe, and that's where I got off there.
Well, anything else about the Oklahoma you want to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know of anything. I just let's see. We talked about the bunks we got, the catapult and the airplane, and I don't know what else that we had new. I don't think that we did have anything else. I don't think there's anything else that I would know. I might think of something later, but I don't.
Well, I think we have a good interview.
Well, I enjoyed it. I know I'm not I've been out of circulation for about 20 years, and I had a little old light stroke about a month ago, something like that, and I've got little Parkinson's disease, and that blocks a little memory. Sometimes I'll start to see something and hesitate, you know what I mean, and then I'll forget what it was. But anyway, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're in the process now of, we're going to build a memorial to the Oklahoma in Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be granite slabs. We're going to have the names of all the men that were killed on the Oklahoma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because out in Hawaii, it's overshadowed by the Arizona.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
Which I guess is justified since 1,000 died on the Arizona.
Well, we've got a plaque out there.
Yeah.
That I think I sent them $25 to help build it. No, I don't know of anything else. Only I just know that that was my home. When I was in the Navy, I didn't want to go to any other ship, or didn't have any intention of going to ship.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you sure welcome. I hope that you can get a little something out of that, it'll do you some good. I don't know.
Where there's a memorial gonna be located in Oklahoma City.
It's gonna be on the grounds of the Historical Society.
Oh, yeah. We lived in Oklahoma City for about 6 years.
Oh, you did? Okay. We're building the Veterans Memorial now. It's, we have 4 granite slabs. We're having a plaque for World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Good.
And, that's being finished now. But you had seen the, Silver Service in the Oklahoma? Well, you
No, I don't believe I did. I may have, I don't know. At the time I was on there, it was down officers.
Yeah, well, that was, the captain used it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I've been in the captain's, in the officers' quarters, like,
What did the captain's quarters look like on the Oklahoma?
oh, I couldn't describe it to you. It just, that, that's been a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
See, that was the worst. Stay right down here. But I sure hated to leave the Navy when I wasn't ready. I wanted to stay long enough to retire anyway. But then, like everything worked out, it couldn't have been better for me.
Yeah.
I got a good family. And
Good.